Welcome back to Getting Started with Linux. I'm your host, Daniel Lowrie, and today we're going to take a look at processing text with our good friend, Ross Brunson. Ross, we're glad to have you back.
Thanks.
And I like this episode name because you've been kind of selling us on this whole Linux thing, and it's got a lot of text in it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting the vibe that you feel like this is an advantage. I'm going to give you the opportunity to now sell us on that.
Okay. Well, a lot of people think that text is a disadvantage. And they're used to seeing text appear in some sort of an application that has scroll bars and things like that. Well, if you're at the console, not a GUI console, but just the console, command line on a system, you kind of have the same thing. You'd have to use shift up page up and page down to see the buffer and all that. But if you're in one of the applications like the terminal application, you really are containing the text inside of an application. Mm-hmm. However, there's a whole lot of it that happens. And so I think it's important to kind of work folks through what you can do with text. So let's grab some text out of a file. Let's transform that text. Let's put it into other files. Let's chain things together. You know, just a little bit of fun with processing text. So let's switch over to our system here. And I have a text processing. Text proc, there we go. And in here I've got names and numbers to start off with. There's a couple of other things in here, but we'll see those as we go on. Let's cat out the names file. Names is in no particular order, as you can see from alphabetic. So one of the things we might want to do is we might want to run sort names. When I run sort names, it takes it from the first column and goes to the right and sorts it alphabetically. So Eric Raymond versus Eric S. Raymond. Eric Raymond would come first, Eric S. Raymond would come second, and so you see that it's sorted. Now, has anything happened to the original file?
I'm going to go with no, because it just was something that came out to the...
Yeah, what we did is we used cat, pulled it out, put it through a text processor, but we never put it back to disk.
Right.
So it's strictly and solely on the console. So as we look at it again, what I might want to do is I might want to, say, number these things. But I want to number them in an alphabetical order, so I can use two commands together to do that. I'll do a sort names, and then I'll pipe that to the nl command. Now, nl has two modes. Well, it's got more than that, but two modes that we care about. One of them is just number the lines. The other one might be number the lines that have data in them. So let's take the first one. So if I do this, you see that it puts a number next to each one of the lines of output. So that's extremely useful if you're trying to do, say, a code review, or you've got something that's a legal document, and you want to say, please go to line 374. Everybody goes to 374, and there it is. Okay. Now, the way that you would put this back to a file is take it to a new file. Please do not try to go from the original file back around to the same file.
It's like crossing the streams on Ghostbusters.
Exactly.
Total protonic reverse.
Bad things happen. Yeah. So somebody gets slimed. Let's put it that way. So you don't want to do that.
No.
So, for example, we might want to say an up arrow here and then just redirect this to new names or new namnes.
Hey, works.
Either way.
I love how your tab autocompletion is now saving you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So now if I cat new names, you see that I have the numbered output of what I wanted. Now let's talk about a little bit of an interesting thing with sort, where sort interacts with numbers. So I have a file called numbers, and numbers has 0, and a typo there, don't you like that? A 0 through 30 in the file. This is in numeric order, but there are times when I'm trying to sort something and I realize that the way that I've named things or the way they occur doesn't sort right. So for example, I might type sort numbers and then I get this thing.
Oh, I hate when this happens.
Isn't that fun?
This is so annoying.
It is. It's terribly annoying because basically what it's done is exactly what you asked it to.
It's right, and that's the kicker of it, right?
That's right.
I told it to do that.
You did. And Linux said, yes, sir, I can do that. No problem. And it's not what you wanted.
No.
So what we can do is, type clear correctly, we can do sort -n for the numeric format and then numbers, and it's going to do it exactly right. Now, I'm not just catting the original file.
Right.
It's actually sorting it properly. And so whenever you don't have leading zeros on numbers, it will actually, in the program, kind of effectively add those, sort it in a numeric friendly format, and then do the output for that. Okay? So this is names and numbers. Now, I've got something called lots of names. So let's do a quick WC -L on lots of names, and it's got 14 items in there. Now, with the 14 items that in there, let's see, we'll do lots of names, and you can see that it's basically a couple of pieces of the output of the names file. There's a fun little utility that you can use in conjunction with sort called unique, and it's spelled U-N-I-Q, but not the U-E, so unique.
Oh, gotcha.
So what I do is I can deduplicate identical lines by sorting so the lines are together and then running unique against on that so it pulls them out. So I should end up with 7 lines by running sort and then lots of names and then piping that to unique. Well, let's just look at it and see. There it is back together. But I can also verify this by piping it to WC minus L, and then I see that I'm back to 7.
You're a wizard, sir.
In a very specific context.
Yes, in a very specific context.
Too bad it's not with the stock market.
No.
The other fun thing with this text processing is to realize that we can chain all this stuff together, but there will be lots of times when you want to see the top of a file just to see what it is, or for a log file, you want to see just the bottom of it. So for example, what I might want to do is I might want to take a file such as our release notes file here, and if I type head and release notes, it's going to show me the first 10 lines, data or no data, out of that file. I can tell it that I want to see more than that by giving a specification. So minus N15, and it'll show me the first 15 lines. I could do head minus N50, right, as long as it's got more than 50 lines. Otherwise, it's just going to show me what's in the file. Another fun command is the tail command. So tail on release notes is going to show me the last 10 lines by default. And yes, I can do the same thing with this. I can tell tail that I want to see the last 20 lines of the file, and it'll show me the last 20 lines. There used to be an old question many, many years ago in the LPI exams that said, you have a 30-line file. Show us how do you show the middle 10 lines of the file? And you had to get innovative. You had to say head minus N20, tail minus N20, and it showed you the middle 10 lines. Okay, the most copied question on the face of the planet. But it's a good exercise to know how to be able to do
Helps
that.
Helps you work through all these cool little tools and utilities that Linux has to offer and see how you can really bend them to your will.
Mm-hmm. 2 options that are really fun with the tail command. Tail minus F and then a file, like a log file, will open up the log file and show you the last 10 lines. And if you're busy adding entries into that, it's like this running, scrolling thing.
Updating.
Yeah, so you can actually watch it as it's happening.
That's great.
Another one that's very similar to that is tail minus capital F and then a non-existent but soon to be created file.
Okay.
So you can do that. It will follow a non-existent file until the file's created and immediately start showing it as it marches up the screen.
Okay.
So just a little bit of fun with text processing, but there's more.
There's more. But wait, there's more. If you act now, you'll get
the Ginsu knives, right? Yes. And the Ginsu knives cut you just like SED does. So let's talk a little bit about our friend SED. I have prepared a file called release notes. And I've decided that I really like these release notes as they're prepared, but they don't say my distribution's name in them. They say somebody else's distribution's name.
Oh, no.
So we'll pick on the SUSE guys a little bit because they're good friends. All right, so if I run less and the release notes, you're going to see that it's got a bunch of stuff in here. Of course, it says SUSE and it says all the different, Linux Enterprise Server, etc. I'm using this strictly and solely as a way to say, how can we use the stream editor SED to transform a file? Now, a lot of people are very confused about SED. They'll go and they'll get the SED knockbook and they'll work their way through that, and they may or may not make it. I have a very simple way to explain SED, and that is I want you to imagine that you're at one end of a room and you have a string that you hold in your fingers, and the other end is attached to the other side of the room to the wall.
Okay.
That stream or string, it is actually the text file that we're going to transform. Okay. So what you do is you take the text file, take a little bead, and that bead you write on there, I want to replace SUSE with ROS6.
Okay.
String that on there, and it slides all the way down, transforming the text you were looking for with the text you wanted, either the first instance on a line or every instance in the entire file.
That sounds great.
Well, so what you can do, using a number of beads and SED minus E, you can transform many different things. So you can do a tremendous amount of text processing. So say, for example, you're getting a financial feed from Yahoo or somebody like that. You can take that financial feed and run transforms on it to turn it into a rich web page that's easily updatable.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's just so much that SED can do.
So a small little utility like SED is going to take this and make your life a whole lot easier.
Well, the old...
There's caveats to that, though.
Yeah.
I can feel them coming.
About the easier thing.
Yeah.
The old joke is that, if you have a problem with computing, and you decide that you're going to use SED or regular expressions, you now have two problems.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So sometimes it's not really a fix. It really becomes a project. But let's take a look at our system because we'll do a simple transform. So you remember that we had the SUSE in there. So SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. We're going to transform that, and we're going to do SED. And the important point about SED is that you want to do an action or a function. So what we'll do is we'll do SED, single tick, S/ and what we're looking for. So SUSE, and it has to be correct.
So capitalization, punctuation kind of thing.
Oh, yes,
matters.
Absolutely. SUSE, and then ROS-X, just for fun. Now, that is almost done. What I've done here is I've said SED. I want you to treat this thing in between the quotes as a bead for the string. Go find in this file every instance of capital SUSE and replace it with capital R and then lowercase OSSIX. Except if I don't give it a modifier on the end, it'll find the first instance on each line. And if it says SUSE 4 times, it'll change 1, leave the other 3. Line, I believe, is up until there's a carriage return line feed or a hard paragraph break or something like that. Let's run it without the G on the end for global and see what it does first of all. So we'll give it that, and then we have to give it the file that we're looking for. Right, so now if you look in here, good thing I haven't written this to disk.
Yeah.
ROS-X appears everywhere. There's ROS-X LLC, etc. But you'll notice if you scroll back up here, as sooner or later, there'll be a point where it doesn't do both of them or more than one on a line.
All right, because you said it only finds the first one and then moves on because we didn't add a certain modifier.
The global modifier.
Right.
So what we can do is we can up arrow again here and add that G there. And so now it's going to search the release notes file for every instance of the capital letters SUSE, replace it with ROS-X, and put it to the screen. Well, because it's the release notes, what I can do is I can say redirect new release notes. There we go. Okay. This is a transformation, and not just a transformation into the console, into memory.
Right, we're putting this on disk.
Putting it back onto disk, but we're making sure we don't do it the wrong way. Okay, so now, a little bit later on, we're going to have some fun with commands that let you compare things. But one of the fun ones that's out there, and we'll see if it's installed, is a thing called vimdiff. And if I give it 2 files, so release notes.txt and new release notes.txt, vimdiff will come up and show you exactly where it's changed from one file to another. Now, what's really fun is that I can scroll down and it will go through and show me every instance of every line that it's made a change to.
You have just changed my life, sir.
Vimdiff is awesome.
Vimdiff is great.
Now, vimdiff is a graphical-ish, I wouldn't call it text mode graphical, but it's a visual, there we go, visual way of looking at the differences between 2 files. What you can do, after getting out of both, is you can run diff and then release notes and new release notes. The diff command, let's pipe this to less to make it easier to understand. And less gives you, well, more specific information in that it's more scientifically notated, but it's not quite as easy.
No.
So diff will actually show you, on this line, there's this change and what it was. This is also what you use to take source code and produce patches. So I could basically produce a patch out of this that would then patch all the other release notes.txt's that I had by simply applying the patch to it.
Excellent.
So diff and vimdiff, depending on what you want to do, but I really like vimdiff.
Yeah, vimdiff was. I've used diff quite a bit, and yeah, that's what I'm used to seeing. Well, that's why I said it changed my life, because that was much nicer output.
Yeah, it has to be installed.
It does.
But it is part of the Vim suite.
That's great.
Okay, right up there with Vim Tutor.
Okay. All right, well, it looks like we've processed some text today, and we see that there's a lot of text for us to be able to work with. You're going to find yourself, these kind of commands are what's going to come in real handy for you as you progress as an admin or just a Linux user in general. So make sure you learn these things. They're great tools. That being said, we are out of time for this episode. We'll be back for more, so join us then. Until then, we'll see you next time.